up, guys? Eric here, Eccentric. I know I haven't posted in quite some time. So I got sick at the beginning of the month that I haven't posted. I had a flu that affected my diabetes. It was pretty rough. Just trying to get back on my feet. But towards the end of that month that I haven't posted, which was last weekend, Team Eccentric went to a 3v3 tournament in Rochester, New York at Millennium Games. And if anyone's heard of Millennium Games, it is the biggest trading card store / hobby store / OTS store in the country. It is in fact the largest store in the country that hosts OTS tournaments. And if you've watched Crush Cards or Nim Nim or Ruggles, it has been featured on their channels. So we went there and we participated in a 3v3 case tournament, and quite honestly didn't do very well. The team as a whole didn't do very well. In regards to individual matches, my matches weren't so bad. Out of 5 rounds, I won 3. The first 2 rounds were my losses, which was pretty rough. Our first rounds were against another team that had a good pal of mine who also has a YouTube channel, Prophecy Wiz. He played Melodious. He was not my opponent. He was not my direct opponent. I played against his friend who was playing Mitsurugi Raizo in round 1. It was a pretty rough go. But this is the deck list, and despite that, again, I feel as if individually my matchups were actually pretty good for the most part. So I figured I'd at least profile this deck and kind of show off what I played. There are some changes that I did make in the side deck, but I'll just discuss those when I get to them. We'll get to the deck profile. So starting it off, we're obviously doing triple Neptibus. That's pretty standard. Triple Dragoons, standard triple Rhine, triple Teus. I'm just gonna go through like the engine and then the non-engine and just kind of like describe exactly what I'm playing. So then we play the triple Pike and the triple Shadow Squad. This is pretty much the engine at this point. It's really strong. You got all your starters, all your extenders. Triple Neptibus, that's obviously a starter card. Triple Dragoons gets you into all your Sea Serpents. Rhine gets you into either your Coelacanth, your Teus, or your Poseidra. Triple Pike is an additional, though inferior, normal summon that triggers your Shadow Squad or your Dragoons. And then you obviously have your Teus, which is both a starter and an extender in a way. So the engine's pretty self-explanatory. At least all the 3 ofs are. So that's it for the 3 ofs in the engine, and then for the 1 ofs, I am still playing Mooling Glacier. I know a lot of people have opted to play the Barrier Statue, and I don't disagree. My only issue with the Barrier Statue is what happens in the lines or in the combos. What combo do you go down if you end up playing against a Mermail player, or say a Shark player or something along those lines? Barrier Statue's not going to do anything. I would rather rip cards out of my opponent's hand and know that I'm ripping advantage away from them than to summon a Barrier Statue and it'd be pointless. Worst case scenario, there is a world where you can still make Barrier Statue and Moulin, but I feel like it's good, but I feel like Barrier Statue has a little bit more variables that can affect the capability of it to actually win games outright. Most of the time, it'll win games outright. But the issue is if you're playing against a Mermail player, or you're playing against a Shark player, or you're playing against a Marincess player, then the Barrier Statue does nothing. So then we're playing the 1 Poseidra. To be honest with you, I only needed 1. I think it's definitely playable at 2. You could even play it at 3. There is a world where 3 of it is relevant, but I feel like that kind of bricks. And I think that honestly 1 of it was just fine. I didn't really need to play multiples. Honestly, it was searchable off Neptibus. It did everything it was supposed to do. This card is nuts. This is the first time I've profiled with this card, even though it's been a month since I've had it, because I got it on I got it at the sneak peek for Supreme Darkness. But this card is honestly nuts. Just being able to send a water from field or hand to the grave as cost, special summon this, and if your opponent controls a card, you can send a Mermail or Atlantean from your deck to the grave as cost to target something and bounce. Absolutely nutty. It extends you into your, it extends you into like combo pieces that are already in your deck, or at the very least, it allows you to soften up boards and try and break boards more effectively. So this card is nuts. I don't disagree with 2, but this build, I am playing a considerable amount more non-engine, and that I feel is kind of necessary right now. So just 1 Poseidro, 1 Coelacanth. I am still on the Coelacanth build. I think Coelacanth is still a great card, given you get drolled. To be honest with you, I don't actually make Coelacanth in my main combos anymore. It's more so just an option if I get drolled or if I get shifted. It's still a solid card nonetheless. Or like in the scenarios where you can just really go off, you know your opponent has no hand traps, you can just really go off with this. It's absolutely nutty. This card I know is probably going to be controversial, but I am playing 1 Mermail Abyss Gund. I opt to play Gund rather than the Baby Croc or the Gluttonous Reptolfin Grethus thing. This card is good in combos, but the reason why I opted not to play this as opposed to the Gund is because if you draw the Rhine, if your only line is Rhine and then this does nothing. The Rhine is dead. However, if you draw the Gund and Rhine, that at least gets you into your fish, which can at the very least get you combo that way. There goes the deck box. But that's why I opted to play the Gund. I mean, it also is effective in that it is part of a 1-card Neptibus combo that gets you the full board. So I feel as if Gund wasn't terrible. It definitely did its work. And also, if you add it at the end of your combo and you have like double Toad, you can also just send it off of Toad as a negate. And then, keep the Toad on your board for, follow-up. I opted to play 1 Minstrel, which is very, very weird for me. I liked 3 Minstrel, but the thing is you want to minimize bricks in this deck, unfortunately. I mean, right now, like, the game is in such a way, the game is in a place where, like, you really need a lot of non-engine in order to function, especially against decks like Malice, or even Blue Eyes, or like all the decks in the meta right now. You really need a lot of non-engine in order to combat those decks, and unfortunately, you're never guaranteed to go first. So, in fact, I've lost more die rolls than I won, and Minstrel honestly is a great card going first, and it is searchable off of Atlantean Dragoon and Pike. But that said, seeing multiples doesn't do anything for you. It's unfortunate, but there is a world where I do kind of want to bump it back up to 3, but it'll just kind of depend on the meta. And then 1 heavy infantry, and that's obviously an engine requirement that also allows us to either break boards or disrupt our opponent's field. So that's it for the monsters in the engine, and then for the 2 spells in the engine, it's just Abyss, Sting Trina, and 1 for 1. That's it. I don't play Pot anymore or any of that. I want to. There's a world where I think Pot of Prosperity is a good card in this deck because you can dig for your non-engine, you can dig for combo pieces. You're not really doing a lot of drawing during your turn. But the thing is, again, you want to maximize combo potentiality, and you want to maximize the output of the deck, and you want to minimize your bricks. And I honestly just think that this is, just play the necessities. And again, non-engine is important, and yeah, Prosp can technically be considered non-engine because it digs you for a side deck card potentially, or it digs you for a card that could, break a board. But it's I'd rather honestly see the card than the pot. But now we're moving on to the non-engine. So the non-engine is, like I said, very considerable. I actually bumped it up by 3 cards. So I'm playing 14 non-engine in this main deck. and it consists of triple Nibiru. The reason why I chose Nibiru is because you need a bomb in game 1, given you go second. You need a bomb card that just allows you to destroy your opponent's field. And Nib was that option. I feel like in a lot of games, Nib really did put in a lot of work, particularly against Melodious. In round 3 of the tournament, I played against a Melodious player, and they just weren't playing under Nib. Like, they just were trying to streamline their combos and just go through, and I just nibbed everything away, and that won me the game within like 3 minutes. Won me the match within like 3 minutes. So Nib, honestly, is really strong right now. I think it's not the best against Mitsurugi Raizio, but you just side him out. Then from there, triple Ash Blossoms. So the Ash Blossoms are actually in here because they act as pseudo Called by the Graves for your opponent's Mulch armies, because that's something you really want. You really want to be able to, not get Mulch armied with this deck. This deck, it can play under Mulch armies if it's just one, but if your opponent Perulias, Fovoloses you, or Fovolos, let's say Fovolos Meows or Meows Perulia, any combination of 2 of the Mulch armies, and you're going to be giving your opponent some cards. There was a combo in round 1 where I played against the Mitsurugi Raizio player, and I did lose that match, but it was a hard-fought match, and I could have actually won game 3 had I not made a misplay, but all that is besides the point. There was a combo where my opponent double Fovolosed me, and I could have just ended on my monsters. They were all effect monsters, no disruptions except for Abyss Rhine in the grave, but I didn't have any cards in my hand, and I had 2 level 4s. So I figured, all right, if I give him 2 draws, he has no cards in hand because I Moolined him. Maybe I could make Dweller, and then during their turn detach Dragoons, search Heavy Infantry, and then use the Rhine to draw another card and then ditch the Heavy Infantry. But honestly, that was a bad play because they had no cards in hand. I could have just ended and they would have drawn 1 card, and then I probably could have gone in for game. But that also depends on if that card that they drew was like a Sword Raizio or an X or whatever cards in Raizio allow them to get to more level 4s. So I suppose that just kind of that was just kind of the way the match turned out. But moving on with the non-engine, we have triple Mulch Army Perulia. Honestly, Perulia really did some work in rounds 3 and 5. So yeah, this card is still really good. Same with double Fovolos. If I had the 3rd Fovolos, I'd be playing it. Unfortunately, I only have 2. And honestly, 2 is fine. You don't want to brick. Because sometimes that's one thing I will say about playing as much non-engine as I'm playing in this deck, is sometimes you'll just draw a bunch of non-engine, and you just have to rely on that non-engine to kind of get you through turns until you can see your actual combo pieces in your actual engine. But honestly, it did it. And then the last but not least for the non-engine was triple Infinite Impermanence as target negation. So, like I said, basically my theory crafting with this was I want to have, a bunch of engine, a lot of gas, but at the same time, I also want to just stop my opponent from playing, so that way I can soften their boards and go through them. And that's what Nibiru was really here for, because originally these would have been the 3 Nibirus would have been the 2 Minstrels and the 2nd Poseidra, and that's something I considered. But to be honest with you, I really feel like if you're playing the Mulch armies, you really need some bomb cards that really make the Mulch armies worth playing. And yeah, you can just play like the Ash Blossoms and the Imperms, just to again, soften your opponent's board. But I would rather soften my opponent's board with the Imperms and the Ashes, and then just destroy whatever's left with the Nibiru, given they get to 5 summons. So that is it for the main deck. 40 cards. I only play 40 cards in this deck. I don't feel as if you need to bump up the deck count any higher than 40. But yeah, so for the extra deck, we are playing the 2 Mermail links. Mermail King Neptibus and Mermail Ghislacia. Both were effective in what they did. This card just making things not targetable is great. This card gives what it points to an extra 500 attack and defense, which does come up nowadays. That's something that can be important. Zealantis. Zealantis was okay, to be honest with you. I I hesitate to cut it because of its ability to just absolutely wipe boards where people are unprepared or don't read that you play Zealantis. So I feel like Zealantis is just too strong with the Coral Anemone. I mean, just these Link monsters are just kind of where it's at the moment. I have considered putting Abyss Keeper back in, but at the same time, you know, with this deck, you're cycling through cards and you're discarding and special summoning cards so much that you can just discard the Coelacanth and then summon it back off of your other Atlantean Xyz monster, the new one that came out, which I will show now. So we have Poseidra Abyss, which we all know, non-targeting, bounce 3, send to graveyard, discard a card, soul charge 3 level 3 or lower, fish, aqua, sea serpents. It also you know, can be Xyz summoned over the top of either MERMAIL, Abyss, Gaius, which we all know is the on-board skill drain that makes it so that level 5 or higher monsters can't attack, which actually can help in certain scenarios where you nib them and then their token is absolutely enormous and you have no way to clear it. You just make the Gaius if you can manage it, and you just make it so that your opponent can't attack you with the token, which did come up. And then the new Xyz monster, which is actually probably my favorite support card out of all the new stuff, which is Abyss-Trite, the Atlantean Spirit. It is effectively a better Coral Anemone. What it does is, when it's Xyz summoned, it allows you to target a level 7 or lower fish, aqua, or sea serpent in your grave and special summon it. Its effects are actually not negated, which is relevant. Also, for each material it has, all your water monsters gain 300 attack points per material. So if it has 2 Xyz materials, then all your water monsters gain 600. It also has another effect that's kind of irrelevant, where you can detach a material from it and then set an Abyss trap card from your deck, which, to be quite honest with you, I don't ever see being relevant unless they like release some crazy Abyss trap card that does so much. Like, I did consider playing like Abyss Squall at one point, which is like another like a trap based soul charge for Mermails, but to be honest with you, that card's terrible. Honestly, all the Abyss trap cards are not that great. Even the new one, the Abyss Steam, I'm not going to play that card, even though it gets me draws. It's really not all that relevant. So, yeah, that's it for the rank 7s. Then we have double Bahamut Shark, double Toad. Yeah, that's pretty standard. I mean, I don't see why you wouldn't. I don't see why you'd change that ratio. Then the one Abyss Dweller, because, I mean, it's Abyss Dweller, literally. You know. Then, last but not least for the Xyz monsters, this is kind of a weird one because I'm not playing the trap that goes with this, but Lavirtue Dragon. Lavirtue Dragon is only in here for the combos in which you link or, you know, send off the Poseidra Abyss, and you opt not to go into your other synchro plays, which I will be showing you in a moment. This just allows you to get back resources in a state where you're under Droll. This card can be really relevant as well. Also, you know, you can detach materials from any of your other waters to use its effect. The only downside is that it doesn't detach for cost, which can be a bit of a hindrance, but besides that, I mean, the card's decent, although I am considering cutting it for possibly the Stealth Kraken again, just for time. Not that time ever came up, but just in case it ever does. I'm not the person who likes to lose in time. So, yeah. And then last but not least for the extra deck is one Gamera Azurine and one Trishula. So my philosophy with Trishula is that if I don't get hand trapped and I realize that with Minstrel my opponent's on board breakers rather than hand traps, which some decks are, you know, they're opting to, you know, play more board breakers than hand traps, or even if I just play through a hand trap but I notice they have like a droplet in their hand or something, then I want to rip that droplet. I want to get it out of their hand. Same with a, you know, Dark Ruler or anything, any card that would dismantle my board, Super Polys, etc. I want to rip it. So my goal was to trish them and just rip cards. And then the Ice Jade was in here more so for honestly, this card, I just had really good interactions with this card and Fiendsmith because they activate the Engraver. If they have, you know, Engraver to try, you know, they try and use Engraver's effect in the grave or whatever, anything. You just use this, make it so that your board is protected from card effects that would destroy or banish. So your monsters can't be destroyed or banished by card effects, and if they're also under the Mermail link, the link 3, then they can't be targeted either. So that makes it very difficult to clear your board. And then you also respond to your opponent's card effects, and the card that you responded to, all copies of that card on their field and in their grave get banished. So this card is nuts. It also could be sent off of Toad if you know your opponent's playing like a deck like Malice or something. You could send this to the grave off of Toad to negate, and then as soon as they try to banish something, you just summon it back. Really, really strong. So that is the extra deck for the Mermails. And then the side deck, like I said, there are 2 cards in here that weren't originally in here, but I will go over that when we get there. So to start it off, Triple Lancia. This card literally never came in. I didn't see any Malice players. I didn't play against any Malice whatsoever, which is kind of the dream for this deck, but all the same, it kind of makes my extra deck, or my side deck rather, a little bit obsolete. But either way, it was in there. Then Triple Droll. Droll did come up. Droll honestly is really strong right now. As soon as your opponent draws off of Mulcharmies, you just Droll them. And then, so that stops, all their lines. And then, so the 2 cards that I was originally playing over these are 2 copies of Mulcharming Meows. I only owned 1 copy. The second copy I borrowed off of Austin for the tournament because he wasn't going to play 1, and he knew I was going to play at least 1, so he opted to let me borrow the second one, and it never even came in. So it's not relevant in the scope of this tournament, but I'm opting now. So now we're going, moving forward, I'm citing the 2 minstrels for going first, just to make it so that even if I'm not maining 3 minstrels and it makes me sad, at the very least I know that going first in game 3, this will come in and rip more hand traps. Then we're playing Triple Book of Eclipse. This card honestly was the MVP of the side deck the entire event. There was a matchup that I played against White Forest Azamina, and it was game 3 and I was going first, and they attempted to nib me because I couldn't get to my minstrel without kind of going neg on card advantage, or not even not completing my combo in an effective way. So they attempted to nib me, and I had Book of Eclipse, and I just flipped all my monsters face down, so nib couldn't come out, and my monsters were protected. And then I just passed to them, and they bricked, so there wasn't much they could do. So then they passed back to me. I flipped all my monsters, which, because the nib was still in their hand, they couldn't do anything, because flip summons don't count under nib. So I just flipped a bunch of cards, and it was by the time I got Coelacanth, Dragoons, and 3 Pike on board, so I just Xyz summoned into a Bahamut Shark, detached, summoned Toad, search off Dragoons, and then went off that way. So Book of Eclipse is honestly my favorite board breaker. It's very versatile. I think it's really strong. So then 1 Call by the Grave in the side. This is basically the 4th copy of Minstrel, I'd say. It went in game, in the games that I knew I was going first, obviously. And then last but not least, Triple Dominus Impulse, which was a very strong card the entire tournament. It just negated so many summons and just allowed me to have another side deck bomb, aside from the Nibiru, that allowed me to really, keep my opponent off of more cards. And that, I think, was probably the biggest thing, is either nib them or impulse them. And then, if Droll is relevant, or if Ash is relevant, or Imperm is relevant at the moment, then also use that. So that was the philosophy of the deck for the 3v3. So like I said, by the way, that was the entire side deck. So as I said, the tournament didn't go well for the entire team. I think we had 2 wins as a team, but individually, my matches actually towards the end of the event went better. So match 1 I lost against Mitsurugi Raziel, and with the team that had Prophecy Wiz, or my buddy Mike Wisniewski on it. He was playing Melodious, his buddy was playing Mitsurugi Raziel, and the other dude I think was playing, I don't remember what he was playing. I think he was playing Pure Raziel, I don't remember. But whatever. Round 2. I don't remember what I played against round 2, but I know I lost that match. And then round 3 is where it started to pick up. I ended up playing against a Melodious player, and I just nibbed them both games, and it was just easy 2-0, easy quick 2-0. Round 4 was against the White Forest Azamina player, where the Book of Eclipse came in and won me the game 3. So game 1, he won. Game 2, I won. Game 3, I won. And then round 4 was against because of down pairings and tiebreakers and whatnot. We ended up playing against another group that we know who we're sort of friends with. It had my buddy Johnny Savoy, his friend Ed, and our friend June on the team. And I played against Ed, and he was playing Dark World, and I just set up Dweller and hand looped him, and that was pretty much the way it went. So the tournament went better for me than I think, but I think, obviously as a team, the tournament didn't go so hot, but that's okay. That's kind of the nature of tournaments. I mean, you test your mettle, especially with a 3v3. I mean, this was, I don't play in 3v3s. I've never really played in a 3v3, in any kind of serious capacity. So, it was difficult, but it was an interesting challenge that I wouldn't be opposed to trying to, visit again, given we get another case tournament that's 3v3 coming up anytime soon. I mean, it was fun. I will say that much. I got some good trades as well off the player, so it wasn't a bad experience overall. I will admit that round 2, I think I started getting a little bit agitated with just the way that things were playing. That's right. Round 2 is against Centurion for me. That was an interesting round. I'd never played against Centurion. I knew what the deck sort of did, but I didn't really know what the deck did, so it was kind of difficult for me to play into their boards, because again, I lose most of my die rolls, so I just went second pretty much. I think it was 3 or 4 out of the 5 rounds that we played, which was terrible, but that's the way it goes. I mean, literally all I do is lose die rolls, and that's honestly why I opted to build the deck in this way, where I'm playing a lot of non-engine in the main, because this deck has a lot of 1 to 2 card combos that just win you the game outright effectively. So if you draw, say for example, these, Pike, Squad, Nib, and then 2 Mocharmies, or you could draw literally Naptibus and 4 random cards like this. You can win the game with just that, and that's kind of the philosophy I operated on. Is just doing the most minimalistic things in terms of card economy, in terms of investing my actual cards in my hand. I want to hand trap my opponent to death and then do 1 to 2 card combos. So that's kind of the philosophy I'm operating on with this deck. But yeah, that was my tournament experience at the Millennium Games 3v3 in Rochester, New York. I appreciate the views you guys give us. I'm gonna try and profile some of my other decks. It's been a month. I've had a pretty crazy month, to be quite honest with you, and I figured I would update you guys on MERMAIL, since I haven't updated it since the new support. And I filmed a few deck profiles with different builds, but didn't really like the way those builds were functioning, only because of the fact that I wasn't playing as much non-engine. So I was playing 3 Poseidras, I was playing 3 Minstrels, etc., etc. And I feel like this list is probably among the better lists that I've toyed around with recently. So Eric here with Team Eccentric. I do have some other deck profiles on the way. I just finished filming my Crystron deck profile. That's a deck I'm playing. I have Blue Eyes invoked. I haven't profiled that one yet, but I probably will, because I'm playing it, pretty much standard, but there are some things that I think I'm doing differently with the deck, slightly, at least. So that's pretty much it. Eric here with Team Eccentric, and I'm signing out. I'll see you guys in the next one.